At 5:51 local time, the forward mount on the US Navy vessel comes alive, turning 5 degrees to starboard with a low mechanical hum. Slow, precise, deliberate. Steel moves with purpose. A bosun's mate stops mid-step on the forecastle. On the bridge, no one raises their voice. Condition 3. Key stations manned. Every watchstander in place. Beyond the hull, the sea is open and calm. Visibility is clear. No haze, no clutter. Nothing to disappear behind. Then the radar picture changes. A surface contact appears sharply on the scope. Bearing 243, range 8 nautical miles. Closing fast. 26 knots. Too quick, too direct, too deliberate for ordinary traffic. This contact is not drifting through the area, it is drawing a line. Inside the Combat Information Center, the system begins building the track. Length, shape, superstructure, profile. None of it fits a commercial vessel. The course line cuts directly across the Navy ship's projected path with cold precision.
CPA, closest point of approach, updates again and again. 7 miles. 6. The number falls quietly, without drama. Contact accelerating, the watch officer says, his voice flat. The bridge stays calm. The ship holds course and speed. That is the discipline. You do not react first. You let the data speak. Long-range optics swing toward the contact and lock on. The image sharpens. Gray hull, low freeboard. Forward deck crowded with equipment. No flag visible from this angle. No sign of turning away. Between the two vessels, the sea is still empty, but that empty space is shrinking fast. The first bridge-to-bridge call goes out on the international frequency. Clear, professional, direct. No answer. 5 nautical miles. Electronic support systems come alive, listening before speaking. The log begins to fill line by line. Timestamps, bearings, signals, emissions. Everything noted, everything saved. On the bridge, the captain watches the numbers more than the horizon. Intent is not measured in words out here. It is measured in vectors. Send the second hail. The message is repeated. Again, silence. At 4 miles, the other vessel's wake grows longer. Speed climbs again. 30 knots now. In calm water, the track on the display tightens. This is not a parallel pass. This is an intercept. Below decks, watertight doors close with soft, heavy thuds. Helm orders remain steady. The Navy ship does not turn away. A course change now, even a small one, would tell the wrong story in the record.
CPA under 3 miles, CIC reports. On the forward deck, the 5-inch mount finishes its movement and stops. Just enough to be noticed, not enough to escalate. A message without words. Anyone watching through binoculars can read the posture clearly. Preparedness, not provocation. 3 miles. The contact's radar comes on briefly. Surface search, low power. Then another sweep. It is not a targeting lock, not yet. But it is active, and it is intentional.
The electronic warfare officer marks it and saves the waveform.
Another entry in the record. Unidentified surface contact is painting us, CIC says. The captain gives one short nod. Maintain course. Outside, the distance closes with the slow certainty of tide pushing against a pier. The sea remains calm, almost indifferent. From the bridge wing, sailors can now make out movement on the other deck. Figures near the bow, helmets catching the sun. No signals, no gestures. Only speed, steel, and closing distance. 2 miles. Time to CPA drops below 6 minutes. On the flight deck, the crew moves into action. Green shirts work with practiced efficiency. Tie-downs are checked. The helicopter crew straps in. The aircraft is not configured for offensive action. It does not need to be. Presence is the message. The contact holds its line. At 1.5 miles, the geometry leaves no room for misunderstanding. If the vessel keeps closing on this vector, someone will have to choose.
Turn port, turn starboard, reduce speed, or gamble on steel meeting steel.
The bridge becomes completely still. Every screen shows the same truth. There is no uncertainty here, no confusion, no haze between what the screens show and what the bridge understands. Only numbers moving toward the same point. 1 mile, CIC reports. The captain's voice stays level. Log everything. The US Navy vessel keeps her bow steady, her wake straight behind her like a line drawn with a ruler. Through the optics, the other ship now fills the frame. Close enough to see the angle of its bridge windows. Close enough to watch the white water breaking at its bow. Still no answer on the radio. Still no visible change in course. Seconds begin to stretch. This is the narrow space where incidents are either avoided or allowed to happen. Where intent becomes clear without anyone saying a word. The range continues to fall. Then, just before the geometry becomes impossible to ignore, the image shifts. A tiny change in bearing, barely noticeable, less than a full breath on the display, but enough to register, enough to matter. The log catches it. The Navy vessel holds. The sea holds. And the outcome begins to take shape. 5:24 local time. The bearing change is small at first. 2 degrees, then 3. But on the bridge, it reads like a message finally spoken out loud. The contact is not moving away. It is not slowing down. It is adjusting to keep the pressure on. That is intent.
Inside the Combat Information Center, the track history updates. The predicted closest point of approach opens for a moment, then tightens again as the other vessel corrects. Someone on the opposite bridge is handling the helm deliberately, matching vectors, staying inside the Navy ship's maneuvering space. Contact adjusting to maintain intercept, CIC reports. The destroyer answers with stillness. Same speed, same course. Discipline over instinct. When you move first, you explain yourself later. When you hold steady, the other side writes the explanation for you. Another radar sweep passes across the hull. Locked, time-stamped, classified as surface search. Still not a precision control signal, but the pattern is now consistent. Active, controlled, repeated. This is not curiosity, it is measurement. The captain leans slightly closer to the display. Helm, steady as she goes. A third hail is sent, same wording, same professional tone, international standard. Nothing provocative, nothing dramatic. Again, silence. At this distance, under 1 mile, the sea offers almost no room for error. The water between the two hulls begins to matter. Wake interaction begins to matter. A sudden move by either vessel could push force across both bows in unpredictable ways. That is how incidents happen. That is how quiet moments become front-page stories. On the forecastle, sailors steady themselves near the rail, eyes fixed forward. The other ship's hull is now unmistakable. Gray against gray. No visible attempt to signal. No change in posture. Its bow wave cuts sharply through the water, white foam rolling outward as speed stays above 28 knots. Inside CIC, the tactical picture tightens again. CPA, 900 yards in closing. The number sits on the screen like a weight. The destroyer's systems remain controlled and quiet. No sirens, no confusion. Only readiness. The forward mount stays offset. The electronic systems continue to listen without responding. Cameras keep rolling. Every second preserved. Every frame part of the record. This is the space where professionalism matters most. The opposing vessel slides closer along the destroyer's starboard side. Now nearly parallel, but slightly ahead. A familiar pressure tactic. Close enough to be felt. Not close enough to touch. Not yet. Parallel course established, CIC says. The captain lets out one slow breath. Maintain. On the bridge wing, the wind carries engine noise across the gap. Officers can see crew on the other deck now. Faces turned toward them, hands on rails. No visible distress signals. No attempt to communicate. Just proximity. Behind them, the helicopter's blades begin to turn. Not fast, not loud. Only enough to be seen. A quiet reminder that the ship is not alone.
even when the horizon makes it look that way. The opposing vessel answers by holding speed. At this range, every small action becomes obvious. 1 degree of rudder, a slight change in engine output,
A shift in wake, everything shows. The log continues to grow line by line. Contact maintains close parallel track. Active radar emissions detected. No response to repeated hails. On the bridge, the captain speaks again. Prepare the helo. There is no urgency in his voice, no sharpness. The order sounds procedural, expected. The next step on a ladder already built for moments like this. The destroyer does not turn away to create space. That would concede the geometry. Instead, she holds position and documents everything. The Navy's answer to pressure is clarity. Another radar sweep passes over the ship, stronger this time, still below the next threshold, still not the final signal, but closer. EW agrees. Still in search mode, CIC confirms. That line matters. It means there is still space left, still a path that does not have to climb to the next level. But the window is getting smaller. The opposing ship edges a fraction closer. The gap drops below 600 yards. The water between the hulls begins to change. Wakes collide. Currents twist against each other. Pressure moves through the sea and up into the deck plates. This is the kind of moment people later blame on conditions, but the sea is not making the decision. The destroyer's helm stays steady. Her course line remains clean. Her message is clear. We are not the variable. Then comes another adjustment. This time, no one has to interpret it. The other ship nudges inward, its bow creeping closer toward the destroyer's forward quarter. That movement answers the last question. This is not a mistake. This is a test. The captain gives one short nod. Launch the helo. And the encounter moves into its next phase. 5:31 local time. The helicopter rises smoothly from the flight deck, nose low, rotors cutting into the calm air. No rush, no display, just execution. From the bridge, the aircraft moves forward and down, settling into a low orbit above the open water between the two ships. This is not escalation. It is clarification. Inside the Combat Information Center, the picture expands. Surface and air tracks now work together, stitched into one live view. The helicopter's sensors begin feeding video back to the ship. Thermal, optical, stabilized. Every frame time-coded. Every position marked. Every second saved. A complete record. The opposing vessel is now fully resolved on screen. Gray hull, sharp bow, crew visible on the forward deck. No flag raised, no maneuvering signals. Speed steady, heading unchanged. Aircraft on station, the airboss reports. The destroyer continues on course. 30 knots of steel, restraint, and discipline. The helicopter drops to 200 feet above the water, pacing the other ship just off its bow. Close enough to be unmistakable, far enough to remain professional. On the bridge of the opposing vessel, heads turn upward. Binoculars appear. Movement spreads across the deck. The first visible reaction since the contact began. The helicopter holds its orbit. Inside the cockpit, the crew move through the checklist by instinct. Cameras active, communications open. The visual designator is brought online. Not an attack, not a provocation, a signal. A narrow green marker cuts through the space between air and steel, landing squarely across the opposing ship's bridge windows. Not dangerous, not blinding, impossible to miss. At the same moment, the broadcast goes out over the maritime frequency. Calm, controlled.
Standard phrasing.
Unidentified naval vessel. This is a United States Navy aircraft. You are operating in an unsafe manner. Alter course immediately. The message is repeated in Mandarin. Silence comes back. But the effect is immediate. On the opposing deck, crew members step away from the rail. One points upward, another moves aft toward the superstructure.
The ship still holds speed, but its posture has changed. The certainty is gone. Marker on target, the helicopter crew confirms. Back aboard the destroyer, the captain watches the live feed without speaking. This is the line. Marked without force, held without shouting. The opposing ship's radar sweeps again, briefly touching the helicopter. Logged. Saved. Still not the final threshold, still measured, still restrained, even if only barely. Opposing vessel painting aircraft, CIC reports. The helicopter widens its orbit slightly, a professional courtesy. There is no need to move closer. The message has been delivered.
Now the choice belongs to the other ship. Between the hulls, the water churns as the wakes collide. At this distance, even the smallest change carries weight. The destroyer does not adjust. The helicopter maintains altitude. Only one variable remains, the opposing vessel. Seconds pass. Then the change comes. Not dramatic, not abrupt, but measurable. Contact speed reducing, CIC calls. 28 knots becomes 24, then 22. The bow wave shortens.
The hard cut through the water begins to soften. The ship starts to ease outward.
1 degree, then 2. Not much, but enough to change the geometry. The helicopter keeps its orbit smooth and steady. The green marker stays fixed. There is no chase, no victory lap, no attempt to embarrass the other crew. Just pressure, controlled and measured. Another message goes out over the frequency. Same words, same calm tone. This time, something comes back through the speaker. A brief crackle, short, clipped, unclear. An acknowledgement perhaps, but not an admission. The opposing ship continues to slow. 19 knots, then 18. The gap opens to 800 yards, then 1,000. On the destroyer's bridge, the danger curve begins to flatten. Still, no one relaxes, no one steps away. An event like this is not finished because it feels safer. It is finished when the numbers confirm it. The helicopter completes another circle overhead. Cameras still recording. The marker still visible.
Every second preserved. Every movement added to the record.
Contact altering course to starboard,
CIC confirms.
CPA increasing.
That is the moment. Not defeat, not surrender. Compliance. The helicopter climbs to 500 feet and removes the marker. The green line disappears. The pressure eases. Now the aircraft shifts from deterrence to observation, sliding aft to keep the other vessel in view without crowding it. On the opposing deck, sailors lower their arms.
Movement becomes more normal. The ship steadies on a course that no longer points toward the destroyer. The US Navy vessel holds her line. No horn, no dramatic warning, no announcement. Only open water growing between the two hulls. At 5:40, the helicopter turns back toward the destroyer, keeping visual contact until the range passes 2 nautical miles. Only then does the bridge mark the phase complete. Non-lethal measure effective, the air boss reports. The captain gives one small nod. Recover the helo. As the helicopter settles back onto the deck and the rotors begin to slow, the sea returns to its earlier calm. But the log now holds something more lasting than fading wake lines. It holds proof. And with that proof secured, the encounter moves toward its final accounting. 5:43 local time. The helicopter is secured on deck, its blades folding into stillness. Below it, the destroyer's course remains unbroken. Her wake trails straight behind her, clean and steady. On radar, the opposing ship now sits off the starboard quarter, its range opening slowly and clearly. This is where discipline matters most. Inside the Combat Information Center, the track history tells the story frame by frame. Speed reduction confirmed, course change verified. Closest point of approach now expanding beyond the danger zone. The intercept geometry has fallen apart, not because of a dramatic move, not because anyone lost control, but because one side chose not to cross the line.
Contact no longer maneuvering to intercept, CIC reports.
The captain studies the display in silence. There is nothing more to say. The choice has already been made, just not by him. The opposing ship holds 19 knots and settles onto a parallel course that no longer creates a collision risk. The water between the two hulls widens back into open sea. The wakes separate. The pressure beneath the surface fades. The immediate danger is gone. But the watch continues. Professional caution does not end the moment relief begins. "Maintain tracking," the captain says quietly. Long-range optics stay locked. Passive sensors remain awake. The destroyer does not lower her posture until distance makes intent irrelevant. That is the rule. That is how close calls stay controlled. On the bridge wing, sailors keep watching as the other ship slides aft. The details remain visible for a while. The angle of the bow. The crew moving more freely now. The absence of urgency in their steps.
The tension that had filled the scene begins to drain away. Inside CIC, the electronic warfare officer scrolls back through the emissions log. Every radar sweep, every frequency shift, every unanswered call, every silent second. The data is clean. The timeline is complete. Nothing has been lost.
"Recommend we hold until 5 miles, the watch officer says. The captain gives a single nod. The destroyer continues straight ahead, unmoved by the vessel now falling behind her.
There is no reason to chase distance. Distance will create itself. At 3 nautical miles, the opposing ship makes one final adjustment. This one is impossible to misread. Rudder over, heading away from the destroyer's track. Not subtle, not uncertain. A clear choice to break off. Contact turning away, CIC confirms. The bridge stays quiet. No one marks the moment with celebration. This is not a win. It is a resolution. The destroyer's systems remain active. Cameras continue recording. The log keeps building. Even cooperation has to be documented. Range 5 miles. The opposing ship's radar activity drops away. No more steady sweeps. No more pressure. Its posture has shifted fully from close approach to distant observation. Only then does the captain look toward the horizon. "Secure from immediate posture," he says. "Maintain watch." Condition 3 remains set. The ship does not lower readiness simply because the tension has passed. Readiness is not a reaction. It is the baseline. Below decks, sailors return to routine without ceremony. Doors remain secured. Helm orders stay steady. The destroyer moves forward, as though nothing unusual has happened. And that is exactly the point. At sea, the most serious moments often arrive quietly, in the spaces where assumptions begin to grow. The Navy trains to remove those assumptions before they take root. At 7 nautical miles, the opposing ship fades from visual range. On radar, its track stretches thin, then blends back into the larger picture. Another contact among many. No longer central, no longer decisive. "Recommend we close the event?" CIC asks. The captain studies the display one last time. "Event remains open until horizon," he replies. The log will close only when distance removes doubt, not before. Minutes pass. The sea returns completely to calm. Sunlight flashes across steel and water as if nothing ever happened. From the outside, there is no sign that 2 ships had been minutes away from a dangerous mistake less than half an hour earlier. But inside the destroyer, every second now exists in data. Range 12 miles. The opposing vessel's track merges into normal traffic patterns. No unusual maneuvering, no emissions of concern, no continued pressure. Event complete, CIC confirms. The captain nods. Close the log. The decision has been made. The moment has passed. And no one crossed the final line. What remains is the record.
A precise account of intent, restraint, and choice.
Not written in public statements, not shaped by opinion, written in headings, speeds, bearings, timestamps. Out here, that is what matters. Because the difference between confrontation and disaster is not raw power.
It is command. 6:15 local time. The sea looks exactly as it did an hour earlier. Flat, blue, unbroken. But inside the destroyer, something permanent has been added.
In the Combat Information Center, the event log is finalized line by line. Bearings, speeds, radar activity, course changes, bridge-to-bridge audio, high-resolution imagery from the helicopter sensors, marker timestamps, electronic waveforms. Every element aligned into one uninterrupted timeline. This is how encounters like this end in the US Navy. Not with noise, with evidence. The opposing ship made a calculation when it closed the distance at speed. It believed proximity would create leverage. That calculation failed, because proximity does not create control. It creates clarity, and clarity leaves a record. The destroyer never changed course. It never raised the tone. It never moved beyond the posture its doctrine allowed. That restraint was not passive. It was deliberate, procedural, recorded. And that is where the other side's mistake becomes clear. At sea, pressure only works when it forces a reaction. Here, it failed. The destroyer held its line and allowed the geometry to speak for itself. When the helicopter lifted from the deck, it did not intensify the encounter, it revealed it. The moment the visual marker reached the opposing bridge, the situation stopped being open to interpretation. From that point on, every meaningful choice belonged to the other vessel. Reduce speed or carry the risk. Alter course or accept the record. Disengage or be documented continuing forward. There was no favorable way out of that exchange. The destroyer's crew understood it. The captain understood it. And eventually, the other bridge understood it too. By the time the distance opened beyond 5 nautical miles, the outcome was already set. Not in a dramatic sense, in an analytical one. The opposing ship had not forced a retreat. It had created a file. Inside the destroyer's secure spaces, the review begins. Radar signatures are checked. Emissions are matched. Course changes are compared against timestamps. The maneuvering pattern is clear. What may have looked like pressure on the surface becomes something else under review. Intent. And once intent is documented, its value changes. It no longer creates leverage. It becomes evidence. That is the part that rarely reaches the headlines. No impact, no dramatic turn, no public spectacle. But for professionals, this is decisive. Every close approach teaches something about training, about command style, about limits, about how far a crew is willing to go before it decides the margin is gone. And the lesson here is simple. You do not crowd a US Navy destroyer and leave no trace behind. The ship continues its transit without ceremony. Helm steady, speed unchanged. The horizon ahead remains the mission. The encounter moves into the past, but the data stays behind. For the crew, it becomes another entry in experience. Not extraordinary, not routine, precise. Watches rotate, systems hum. The ocean gives no opinion. But somewhere else, that log will be opened. It will be reviewed, frame by frame. The early acceleration, the unanswered hails, the shrinking closest point of approach, the moment the visual marker appeared, the speed reduction, the turn away. No explanation has to be added. The sequence explains itself. That is why this was a serious mistake. Not because it had to become something larger, but because it did not need to happen at all. The opposing ship revealed its posture and gained nothing in return. No space, no concession, no advantage in the story that would follow, only exposure. At sea, the strongest answer is not always a show of power. Sometimes it is patience, sensors, discipline, and a crew that refuses to be pulled out of procedure. The destroyer did not try to own the moment. It simply refused to give it away. By holding course, it held authority. By recording everything, it held the final word. The ocean closes behind both wakes. The distance grows. The encounter ends without applause and without anything obvious to the naked eye.
But the balance has changed.
Because the next time ships meet at close range and the margins become thin, this record will already exist. Quiet, complete, hard to dispute. And out here, where steel, water and timing
decide faster than statements ever can. That kind of record lasts longer than any display. The destroyer sails on, mission unchanged, line held, mistake recorded.